Hey everyone, Devin Greer here. We are going to be this week looking at Korora Linux. I know it's been a while since I posted a video. I recently started a new job as an IT administrator for a company, and unfortunately only 2 out of 10 servers are running Linux. Both are Red Hat, but the other 8 are Windows. And since I'm not a huge experience with Windows Server, I've had to spend a lot of time learning Active Directory and with Windows Server how the domain controllers and DNS works. It hasn't been a horrible experience, but I've had to take some time off and from doing this and focus on my career a little bit. But now that I've gotten that all under wraps, I'm now back here doing what I like to do, and that's make some videos. A while back when doing the other videos, we talked about how to make the production value better, and one of the things I brought up was OpenShot working on their 2.0 version. Unfortunately, I'm starting to lose faith, as we can see the last blog post done by the developers was the 28th of July. However, one thing that is helping me regain faith in the idea of being able to do this is that here in the next probably about 3-4 months, I should have enough money for my Bonobo Extreme, which is like a $1,700 machine when I've got it all configured out. And definitely looking at moving into Lightworks, which is last year came to Linux's in a beta quality, and I think now it's fully functional, and we'll definitely be getting a paid version of this. I understand that this is proprietary software, and darn me, but it is definitely better than everyone else making Linux videos that I'm sitting down going, huh, this person is on a Mac, and it's very apparent that they're using Final Cut. So that is definitely that whole gig. So the Korora project, if we go back to the home page here, is basically a distribution based on Fedora with a blend of aesthetic and functionality, and Korora aims to make Linux easier for new users. This is definitely down the lane that we've been looking at. We've been looking at, things from Elementary OS to Bodhi Linux, to Manjaro Linux, to all these different distributions that have a similar goal in life to what Ubuntu is doing, but at their own beat, their own pace, much of a different idea. And we're not looking at the bigger ones like Linux Mint. Not that there's anything wrong with Linux Mint, but there's tons of videos already on Linux Mint. The cool part about Korora is they do not push just one desktop. So right now they're still on Korora 20, but I mean, come on, Fedora 21 just launched like beginning of this month. Let's give them some time. I imagine 2, 3, 4 months tops we'll see Korora 21 come out. They do offer GNOME, Cinnamon, XFCE, Mate, and KDE. I did think it was really interesting that they aren't offering any form of LXDE or LXQT, that XFCE or Mate are only options, but as far as I see, those are like the 2 biggest, even though I'm a big fan of QT, especially with Ubuntu going in that direction. But, that is perfectly fine. So let's go ahead, let's open up our virtual machine, let's move into the virtual environment. So some things to definitely take into consideration while it's booting is it's very interesting that it is a distribution based on Fedora. Fedora is typically not the hardest to use, but it's also not the easiest to use either. So it's very interesting that they chose to go with the Fedora base. The only downside I can see to Fedora, and I like Fedora, especially if you guys haven't seen the new direction that Fedora's been going, head over to their site. It's really impressive. But Fedora for me has always been has not been the best in performance. It has always been a little bit on the slower side. It's not horrendously slow, but even if you head over to Phoronix's website, you'll notice that they show, like, in comparison to Ubuntu, Fedora is definitely quite a noticeable amount slower than, say, the Ubuntu operating system. And that might just be a difference between how RPM-based distributions manage their services and their packages compared to Debian with Aptitude. It's very, very possible, but the beauty about using Fedora is if you're on, say, newer hardware, you get graphic drivers a lot easier for the Intel stuff because they update their kernel in their 6-month releases. Don't worry about this, it's because it's in a virtual environment. I don't have 3D acceleration with mine. Okay, so Korora Linux, here we are. I chose the Cinnamon desktop because in the RPM house it's a little hard to find a distro which ships Cinnamon. In the Debian side it's not as much, especially being that one of the main creators of the Cinnamon desktop builds it in a Linux Mint. So, you know, there we go. We're presented with the standard Cinnamon desktop. I will have you know that I did not move the bar to the top here. That was just how it comes by default. This is a very vanilla installed Korora. I have not done anything outside of the norm. It is a 1.6 gigabyte ISO, but we can see why. I mean, this comes with a plethora of software. Things like GlueBus, is one that I've seen. I mean, there's a lot of these in here, like I don't even know what they are. Of course, I know what Darktable is, Inkscape, very both interesting. For internet, you have Deluge. A lot of them I can't even pronounce. I've never heard of Life Area, but it's a news feed and blogs. Your Office, you get a project management software and a e-reader, which is cool. Sound and video, they really packaged it up. I mean, Handbrake's a great tool, and GTK Record My Desktop is good. Simple Screen Recorder, in my opinion, is better, but it's still a good desktop recorder. It's very interesting to see those come pre-packaged. OpenShot, yet again, as a pre-packaged, very interesting. Very interesting. You have your administrative tools, and it gives you the chance to gives you tools for Samba, so Linux. You get a firewall application, and I'll tell you what, if you're on the Debian side of the house and you guys go, oh, that firewall tool sucks. No, it does not. Unlike UFW, that is a real firewall, and that actually requires you to harden it for it to work properly. If you know what hardening is, you need to read up before you do it, or just not even attempt it, because you can really stop things from working if you do it wrong. Preferences, you're able to, have some desklets. You can manage your extensions, your applets, which if you're a Mint user, you're pretty familiar with those. So, I mean, overall, a lot of software. Lots and lots of software. Warning, 1.6 gigabytes, which some people are like, oh my god, that's huge. But most reputable distributions have moved to DVDs, to a DVD size ISO image these days. It just comes with the game and the fact that we're in 2014. So some interesting things I did find though. It is like a lot of Cinnamon desktops, very mixed between Cinnamon and GNOME. As you may know, if you've ever used Mint, it doesn't use files, it uses Nemo. It's not such a bad thing, and we'll get into why I'm not a big fan of using files in this environment. One thing I did want to point out that was really cool is Yum Extender. Yum Extender, in a sense, is a very nice tool because it allows you, it's a one-stop shop for updates, installing and uninstalling software, repository management, and looking at what's been happening on the system. So looking at some logs. So here, I can come in, we're under updates, but maybe I want to go for my available section, and every time you click something, it's got to do its working thing. It's kind of annoying, I'm not going to lie, I'm a little upset by that. But it's not a huge deal, because I'm sure if I had this natively installed on native hardware, not virtualizing, it would not be so freaking slow. In fact, now I'm starting to regret even clicking on it, because it's a lot slower than I was expecting. So I guess we can see this is a little bit of a downfall. Like I said, I'm sure it's not this bad on native hardware. I mean, we are virtualized, screen recording at the same time, and I do have some background stuff running, but see, there it goes. Jesus. Okay, so anyway, I've typed in a handful of main packages. I have had no issues finding software in here. None at all. It has been relatively reasonable at finding software with no real issues, which has been really nice. I haven't tried anything like off the wall though, so your user experience also may be different. Okay, I'm starting to wonder if you... Okay, there we go. I was about to say it crashed, but no. So you go in here. Like I said, it's not bad. We do also have our pending actions, which nothing is pending. Our repository management. Now this is kind of nice because this gives this a leg up to be as close to, say, like OpenSUSE, for example. Because if any of you have ever used OpenSUSE, Yoast is an amazing tool, and the repository management on there for GUI tools is really cool. Of course, you can always manage your repositories in the terminal. But I mean, if you're dealing with end users, as they said, they're making Linux easier. It's really good. You also have your yum history, and you can watch the output. So if something is installing, you can go in there. So that's really cool, and it's really nice that I can come in here, and if I say want to enable RPM Fusion non-free, I just put a check mark there, and there we go. It'll pull down from the next series of updates. Yet again, as you notice, GNOME 3 look. Alright, so overall, I mean, the performance has been relatively decent, being that it is virtualized. It's very hard to judge performance in a operating system when it's virtualized. So on native hardware, your experience may differ. Your level of hardware support also may differ, but typically, if it runs very close to Fedora core, I usually don't have too many problems with the Fedora operating system in hardware support. So let's get down to the bads. A couple of the bads. For starters, when you start talking about aesthetics, and you have something like files installed, right? The issue I have with files, and it's not like it's a bad, I don't hate GNOME, I don't hate the stuff they build, but you have very traditional looking desktop, and then you use the GNOME 3 modern GUI tools. Horrible. Bring Nemo over. Okay, and for those of you who are like, dude, that's a movie, no, I'm talking about Nemo from Linux Mint, which is their file management, their GUI file manager tool. It actually looks consistent to the operating system. The other thing is, throw, you know, an icon theme pack. Make this more yours. And I understand someone sit down and say, yeah, but I want to alter it. Well, if you're going to alter it anyway. But show me a polished end product. Don't hand me something that's stock, but you have changed some things up. Because if you have ever seen Cinnamon with actual pure Cinnamon in the sense of like it's got the GNOME backend stuff installed, yeah, it's not a blue folder, it's an ugly brown folder. So there has been some cosmetic improvements done in here, but they should have done, I think, a whole lot more. The other issue is pick your applications, I think, a little better. OwnCloud, I use OwnCloud, love OwnCloud, but to an end user or a new user to Linux, they're going to think OwnCloud is like Dropbox. Don't include something like that. Everything else I think was fine, but I wouldn't include that. And then, you know, the Yum extender. Yet again, I mean, why would I bring a buddy over to Linux for the first time and show him something like Yum extender? I mean, Fedora offers, with Fedora's GNOME desktop, and I would hope they do too, but I could be wrong, and maybe I should have looked at their GNOME desktop. But if they're not using GNOME software, then essentially the traditional, regular, old-fashioned Fedora with GNOME is more elegant looking and more modern looking, because this reminds me of Synaptic. It has a lot more features and functions over Synaptic, but I mean, essentially, if you do not know what software is out there, you're going to spend a ton of time Googling, or you're going to say, screw it, I'm going to go back to my Windows box. Because essentially, someone may not know Clementine exists. Someone may not know that Zero AD is an excellent RTS game. Give us pictures. I mean, don't get me wrong, I use a lot of Terminal too, but you know, I'm not trying to sell a hard. This is a distribution that is meant to be easier to use than Fedora. So give us the tools necessary. With the exception of that, overall well job. And I think out of 10 stars, I would give this a 9 out of 10. The only reason it's getting a point off is, like I said, some inconsistencies. Don't give me the GNOME 3 crap. I love GNOME 3. I think GNOME 3 is great. But when I use Cinnamon, get me as close to the Cinnamon experience. And if you're not going to use the Cinnamon, all the Cinnamon GUI stuff from Linux Mint, then you need to at least give me something more custom. Don't give, this just says, hey, we were too lazy to finish building it out all the way. And then also include me an actual package store. Especially when if you mention anywhere in your main part explaining what your distro is, and you put easy to use anywhere in there, Do not hand me what Synaptic would have evolved into today. Don't want to see it. Just do not want to see it. But overall, I would say great job. It runs very smoothly. It does have some great tools like repository management. And if I did have someone that I wanted to bring over Linux who's interested in learning Linux but was going to have a hard time figuring out what open source tools that, or it doesn't necessarily have to be open source, but tools that work on Linux, right? To help them get away from their Windows box, this is a good place for them to come in and click and play around and see what is there, see what works, see what doesn't work, before they reach out to me and say, I don't know what I'm doing. So overall, really, really nice. I don't know what is up with Linux distributions, though, and brown backgrounds. Y'all remember the Ubuntu days when they were like that? So anyway, really great. Coming up in next week, and guys, now that I got my job done, guaranteed start pumping out videos again. We're going to look at Deep in Linux. Deep in Linux has caught my interest because, you know, last year, OMG Ubuntu, which is a great news site, did a little thing on Deep in Linux saying how polished and beautiful it was. The Linux Foundation also had made a really nice applause towards Deep in Linux. But when I would go down after reading the article down to where the comments were made, there were a lot of people saying all they had were problems with Deep in Linux. So let's see how this Chinese product actually can, if it's worth our time. We're also we're going to look at Zorin Linux in the future, because for any of you who may be a Windows user, think about coming to Linux, watching these videos for research purpose, or you have a buddy, Zorin has always been praised as, because of their GUI, as a good place for Windows users to get started. So this is going to be cool. We'll check that out. So this video is about to come to an end, but I did want to tell you that tonight we are going to be making another video. We're going to be starting a new series on Steam games, and actually not reviewing the games, but doing the actual gameplay. There's a couple reasons behind this. Steam, in my opinion, is a very crucial piece to come to Linux. And the reason why is I would say over the last, I've been using Linux for, well, this next year will be 7 years. About 40 or 50 people that I've talked to have been interested in coming to Linux, and that's actually a huge number, because a lot of my people that I talk to don't use computers. The biggest thing is, well, it doesn't play games. So Steam coming to Linux is a very crucial key piece. It's a huge piece. The only area where we're still suffering is AAA titles. Now, by no means what I'm showing you here, Eldridge, would I consider a AAA title. I mean, it might be, but I don't hear people ranting about this game. But I started playing this game, and I'm going to start over, and we're going to do a several-part series on the gameplay. We may not like completely show the game off completely, which, by the way, if you're thinking about, if you have watched the video and you are thinking about buying it, go buy it on Steam. It's on sale now for like $5. But I am very interested in showing this game off for the simple fact that it's a very interesting game. It's a very fun game, and it has a game that you could spend hours, and I mean hours, playing in. But like I said, to me, Steam, I'm not a huge gamer. I do like playing some games, enough where I'm considering a System 76 Bonobo gaming laptop. But, you know, overall, like I said, Steam coming to Linux, it's finally a way where we could start getting more users to come our way. And a game like this, you know, games like these, when they sell a lot of games like these, it helps us, believe it or not, get AAA titles. You really think that, you know, companies that are making, like, say, Call of Duty or Battlefield are not watching to see how well games are selling in Linux? And they know that if there's a game that is similar in style, and I'm not saying that this one is similar in style to Call of Duty or Battlefield, but, you know, like this game, and I'll get more in depth of what I think it gets mixed with, but there's a slight element of gameplay style, like the Elder Scroll games, and I'm not saying the mission-wise, but, you know, where you got your hands, and all you see are your hands, and you have weapons. It's a good reason to consider making a port when you're about to make a new game. So we'll cover that more in the video that I should have out tonight. And if you guys aren't interested, that's fine. Don't tune in. But next week we will be looking at Deep in Linux. Thank you all for watching.